I steered the small, inflatable boat towards the shore. Looking back at the horizon, I admired the beautiful pinks, purples, and oranges of the sunset. White sand and black rocks contrasted on the beach Makalana. There was no one on the beach, and I was glad of that. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was Thursday after all. This only made my mission easier. As the sun sets, the darkness will cover my landing, and there is nothing to worry about. I will have bittersweet memories of this beautiful beach. Like the sunrise, tomorrow my life will begin again, and I have no regrets. Many months before, we could have found ourselves on one of those HGTV reality shows where a couple decides to move to a tropical region and goes through the process of evaluating several places to live. At the end of the show, they share a fruity drink with the real estate agent, celebrating the purchase of their new home. In our case, we were escaping not from the snows of the Midwest, but from the 9 months of the year gray skies of the Pacific Northwest. Hillary met in Seattle and have been married for 6 years. We were vacationing in the Hawaiian Islands and decided that the Kona area on the Big Island was the right place for us to move. Seattle's gray skies were an important reason for the move, but not the only one. We were deciding between a house and a condo, and both options had their pros and cons. In the end, we settled on an apartment. Low maintenance and the ability to make friends faster were the main reasons we decided on a condominium. Alii Drive is an oceanfront road that runs south from the center of Kona towards Kiau Bay. It is strewn with houses and condominiums, and every morning runners, walkers, and cyclists climb and descend it to get their daily dose of exercise. The condo we stayed at, Kona Palms, was about a mile south of town and was one of the larger complexes. There was a beautiful large pool with a hot tub. There was an enclosed outdoor social area with BBQ, and also a very good workout area with machines and free weights in the air-conditioned area in front of the pool. Our apartment 508 was in the front building overlooking the ocean. It also had 3 bedrooms. Beautiful master bedroom overlooking the ocean, a decent-sized guest bedroom, and a small room in the back overlooking the pool. This will be my office. The realtor said 3-bedroom oceanfront condos are a rarity, and we should grab it. She may have exaggerated the urgency, but we offered full price and got it. "Oh, Brian, I'm so excited," Hillary purred as we closed the deal. "It seems to me that our life will turn into a permanent vacation." "Brian, I love you. It was the right move for us," she exclaimed. "Well, I'm glad you like it, and I guess I like it too. But as for permanent vacation, I have more than a full-time job, and you also have a tight schedule. We still have to maintain this new way of life," I said. "I know," said Hillary, "but for now, let me just think about the vacation." I smiled at her and hugged her. This was truly my dream, and I was glad that Hillary, I was happy here too. To tell the truth, we were in pretty good shape. The house I sold in Kirkland allowed us to easily pay our rent and monthly dues. After the purchase, we had a good capital left, and there was also my secret account, which Hillary, at the moment, did not know about. Hillary is an nurse, and with her experience, she easily found a job at Kona County Hospital. She negotiated a rotating schedule of 3 10-hour day shifts. I am a commodity broker. I can live anywhere. For the first 10 years, I worked in an office in downtown Seattle. The knowledge I learned from the veterans in that office allows me to now work remotely. By the time we got the keys and moved into the house, we had been on the Big Island for about 8 weeks. We were adapting to a new way of life. I had to monitor the markets and communicate with people on the mainland. I usually got up at 4 a.m. and was in the office by 5 a.m. Hillary worked Monday to Wednesday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Thursday, she relaxed, regained her strength, and by Friday, she went into vacation mode. I knew her job was difficult and stressful. When I could, I would finish early on Thursdays and Fridays, and we would start our weekends. We moved in on Wednesday and met a few new neighbors in the process. Everyone seemed friendly, and they were a diverse group of people. Elderly, young, single, couples, and representatives of different nationalities. We found out that this Friday there will be a Pau Hana night at the condominium. Everyone gathered in the pool area around 18th. There was food and sometimes music. Apparently, this happened a couple times a month, and there were different events or themes. Everything was planned through the general manager of the condominium. We walked in here around 6:30 p.m. with a chilled bottle of white wine and a six-pack of beer in a bag of ice. We found a free table and sat down. We met a lot of people, and everyone seemed nice, with varying levels of friendliness. There were definitely some distinctive characters. Some of the first people we met were Clarence and Lynn. They are an unconventional couple who moved from San Francisco. They live in Palms full-time. Clarence is a large, elderly black man who taught economics at the University of California, Berkeley. Lynn was a stockbroker who retired in his mid-50s. I got the impression that money is not a problem for them. Then we met Bob and Ramona Platham were in their 50s, originally from Texas, and living here part-time. Bob was a builder who made money developing land in and around Houston. Both wore brightly colored floral shirts, were good-natured, and seemed to like whiskey. I like all things Hawaiian, but I can't stand floral shirts. Another interesting couple was Banks Redmond and Chloe Davenport. They are married. We learned that Chloe is the vice president of a large bank in Southern California, and Banks is a psychologist by training, but also considers herself a developer investor. It looked like Chloe was going back and forth between Hawaii and Los Angeles. Banks said he's living in the Palms full-time for now. I have a project that I'm working on locally, actually in the Hilo area. If you want, we can go there and take a look sometime, Banks explained. Banks looked about 5-6 years older than me. He was in his late 40s, maybe even 40. Chloe looked a little older. She was a slender and attractive woman with a serious expression on her face, blonde with light skin. She looked wealthy, which we later found out she was. Banks was dark-skinned, possibly of Mediterranean descent. He was a few inches taller than me, about 6'2", very tanned and in good shape. He had a sleek look, but so far he was a nice guy. I met a lot of other people at Pauhana, but I had a long conversation with Banks. He told me that he advises people informally. He called himself a relationship specialist, whatever that meant. He was interesting and had some charisma. He asked about my business and why we chose Kona as a place to live. While we were talking, I realized that Hillary had not been at our table for some time, and I happened to look around to see where she was. She was talking to a young, skinny surfer with a deep tan and curly blonde hair. He looked to be in his early 20s. They were laughing and standing quite close. Banks noticed that I was watching them. "This work White," he told me. "He's a regular girl hunter at the Palms," Banks explained. "What?" I asked. "Yes, this young handsome guy fascinates them," Banks continued. I stood up to intervene. I did a calming exercise. Deep breath, deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. I looked back at Banks, and he had a look on his face like he was mentally analyzing the situation. "Hey, Hill," I announced, wrapping my arms around her waist and kissing her cheek. "Oh, Brian," I think I surprised her, and it took her a minute to recover. "This is Corey. He's a marine biologist. He told me that he lives in the ocean." "Brian Rivers," I said, holding out my hand. "Nice to meet you," Corey replied. He took my hand, and I squeezed it tightly. His facial expression changed from friendly to, "What are you doing?" Deep breath, deep breath. Hillary continued to tell us how interesting he was, how he invited us to go on his boat to see the dolphins and sharks, and so on and so forth. I just stood there with a stupid smile on my face and nodded. "See you," I said, and directed Hillary back to our table. When I looked back, White gave me a puzzled look. We returned to our table and Hillary began talking to Chloe and Ramona. I just watched events unfold. My attention was constantly drawn to White. "Don't worry, he never preys on married women," I heard a deep, booming baritone voice. It was Clarence. "Sorry?" I asked. "I saw you watching young Mr. White," said Clarence. "He's a nice man, and he doesn't look bad either. But I wouldn't worry about him or any married women. I'm not worried about anything like that," I stuttered. I was a little embarrassed that Clarence noticed my jealousy. In any case, my boy, rest assured, Corey is young, but he has his own set of rules. Married women are definitely not available to him. He and I had many ethical discussions. Thank you for this information, but I assure you it does not bother me, I replied. Okay, all good relationships are built on trust, Mr. Kendall Rivers, Clarence said and walked away, giving me a friendly pat on the shoulder. Sitting at the table, I thought about Clarence's words. This was almost exactly a year ago. We were invited to a party by one of Hillary's coworkers when we lived in Kirkland, near Seattle. These parties can be fun, but sometimes they devolve into hospital gossip and work complaints, which can get boring for an outsider like me. Hillary was excited and looked great. She is in her early 30s, 3 years younger than me. She has thick, dark blonde hair that is shoulder length. She has a slim body. I think what initially caught my attention was her open smile and beautiful eyes. To tell the truth, when I first saw her, I was only interested in physical contact, but then I got to know her better. This story can wait, but nothing can be done. Sexual energy really emanates from her. I'm used to the fact that she attracts male and sometimes female attention. I'm just trying to stay calm. Deep breath. Deep exhale. Anyway, we end up at a party at the house of one of her nurse friends and co-workers, Carly. This is a normal crowd. I know about a third of them by name, and another third I have seen at some similar events before. As we walked in, I saw an old high school football teammate, John Washington. He's hard to miss. John is huge and looked like he'd gotten even bigger since school. We played football together at MT Tahoma. I was a linebacker and John played offensive line. We weren't friends in high school, but we were friendly. I was glad to see him. We ended up drinking beer, talking, and catching up. It turned out that his wife, Mandy, works as a midwife at Overlake Hospital, the same one where Hillary works. John and I and a couple of other people sat in one corner, talking about sports, women, and general topics. About an hour and a half after the party starts, the energy changes a little. A couple of the guys in the group I was with look towards the door and the talking stops for a minute, and then there's loud shouting about something. I look around and a tall, dark-haired guy walks into the party. I'm totally straight, but I have to admit that the guy was good-looking. As I watch him enter, I look across the room at Hillary. She looks at the guy, and then I see Carly and another friend looking at Hillary, Carly whispering something, and then they all giggle. What was it? My antenna is up, but I try not to show it. The guys I'm with start talking about him, and I find out his name is Greg Gorsick. Turns out he'd been working in Boston for the last 4 or 5 years and was now back in Seattle. He's some kind of cool doctor. I look over at Hillary and see her hugging him tightly. When she starts looking in my direction, I rejoin the discussion my group was having. I want to keep watching secretly to see what happens next. I admit I can get jealous, but I try to use my calming techniques to stay calm. Throughout the evening, Dr. Gorsick and Hillary do not leave each other one step. At some point, I notice that they separated from the others and settled in a quiet corner. I can remain calm, but at this point, I apologize and approach them. Hugging Hillary, I look at him and introduce myself. Brian Rivers, I say and shake his hand, Gorkich. Greg Gorsick, he replies with a charismatic smile. Greg, this is my husband Brian, Hillary says. Are you married? He says with a slightly shocked expression. Hillary does not usually wear a wedding ring due to her work in the emergency department. Yes, didn't I talk about this? Hillary muttered. She alternates looks then at me, then at Mustard. Gorsick quickly picks up. Oh, maybe you did. Anyway, Brian, you have a wonderful newlywed. Congratulations to both of you. I don't want to take up anyone's time. There are other people I need to meet, Gorsick says. With a quick kiss to Hillary's cheek and a squeeze of my shoulder, he left. There was an awkward silence between Hill and me. So you know this guy? I asked Hillary. She looked at me with a hint of guilt on her face. Yeah, he worked in Swedish when I was there before we got married. And, I asked, He was part of a youth group that sometimes hung out together, she said with a slight awkwardness in her voice. Well, you definitely spent a lot of time with him tonight. Have you met him? I doubted. No, not really. We were just friends. Now let's just forget about it, she said. Well, I know I haven't gotten the whole story, but I'm jealous, I admit it. But sometimes she can give me reasons to be jealous. She's never done anything, but she's flirty and has that sexy look that attracts men. And I know about her past. I didn't know all the stories, but I heard some. I also have to admit that I like the sexuality she displays, and that was one of the reasons I married her. About 3 weeks after the party, I received an unexpected call from my former high school teammate, John Washington. John's office is near mine in downtown Seattle, and he asked me to meet him for a beer at a downtown bar after work. Of course, John, with pleasure. I say it's a little weird. I like John, but we were never really close friends. When I ask him what's wrong, he simply says we'll talk in the evening. I met John at Pinkin, an upscale bar near Pioneer Square. We ordered beer, and I asked what was the matter. Brian, it's none of my business, but you're my friend and I have a responsibility to tell you what's going on, he said. Is this happening? I was confused. What's happening? I was starting to get excited. Calm down and let me explain, John replied. Deep breath. Deep breath. So, Mandy works with your wife at Overlake. Remember that guy all the girls were staring at Carly's party a few weeks ago? He asked. Which one? I asked, but it seems that I already knew. Well, you know, Mr. GQ soap opera, who fashionably I was late, he explained. Yes, I know who you mean, some Greg. What about him? I didn't like where this was going. I was starting to get angry, and John sensed it. Calm down, Brian. Let me get to the point. John continued calmly. Mandy said that this guy is now at Overlake. Apparently, your wife had dinner with him several times, just the two of them. Mandy says they always sit alone in the cafeteria, away from everyone else. So far, so good, not too bad. And she says they look a little too cozy, and this guy has a reputation. What kind of reputation? I asked, although I had a good idea. I know his type. And tall, good-looking male ladies usually get any girl they want. Mandy also said that she heard that they had some kind of relationship in the old days. What kind of relationship? I asked. Mandy doesn't know, that's all she heard, John said. So here we airy Hillary talked about her old boyfriends and my old girlfriends, but I had never heard of Dr. Greg before this party. He's a player, John said. Mandy stays away from him. Did anything happen to Hillary that she saw? I asked John. Mandy didn't think so, but on Thursday this week a group of them are going out after work. Your wife tried to get Mandy to go with her, but she said no way. And when Mandy tried to tell your wife something about Mr. Burris Hunter, your wife just laughed and said he was harmless. Look, you're my friend and teammate, and I'm just relaying what Mandy told me, but if it were me, I'd definitely make sure all this cozy stuff stops, John exclaimed. He drank, and I told him that the beer was on me and that I was going to sit for a few minutes. We said goodbye, and he wished me luck. My initial reaction was to go home and vent to her. But what can I say? What did I hear that she had dinner with an old friend several times? She would accuse me of being jealous and immature. Plan B was to see what happened Thursday night. For a couple of days, I had to remain calm and act as if nothing had happened. On Wednesday after work, she told me about the meeting on Thursday. According to Hillary, a group of nurses were about to go out for drinks and maybe something to eat. She said that I would have dinner alone that evening. I had a plan. I didn't specifically ask where they were going. It's interesting that she didn't offer me this information. Later that evening, I texted John and asked him to ask Mandy where the after-work party would be and that Mandy not tell Hillary about my request. He gave me a thumbs up and wrote that he would send me a message about the place tomorrow. Just after noon, I received a message from John. Belinda's in Bellevue at 6 p.m. Thank you, I answered. During the day on Thursday, I had no calls or messages from Hill. After work, I went to my gym and worked out. I left the gym around 7 and got to Belinda's at 7:30. I ordered takeout. Their food is actually quite good. The place looked busy, and I saw Hillary's car in the parking lot. Upon entering, I told the waitress that I had an order. I was told to pay at the bar and that everything was almost ready. I noticed a group of them at a large table in the bar. As I slowly approached, I saw several nurses I recognized, and in one corner sat Hillary and Dr. Greg. I couldn't tell if his arm was around Hillary or just resting on the back of her chair. In any case, he was trying to claim his territory. They looked like they were having a private conversation away from the rest of the group. I walked up and pretended to be surprised. "Hillary," I exclaimed, and our eyes met. "Brian," she almost screamed. "What are you doing here?" At this moment, several things were happening. She pulled away from the doctor and looked rather guilty. He looked furious that I had interrupted him, and then quickly put on a friendly, mock-innocent look. He extended his hand to shake, but I ignored him. Several other nurses chuckled at the situation. "I'm just buying dinner," I said. "Have a good time." At this point, I grabbed my food and left. As I drove away, I saw that the restaurant door was open. Hillary saw me leave. By the time I got home, I was actually quite hungry. While I was eating, I turned on Sports Center and drank a beer. I was curious how long it would take Hillary to get home. If everything was innocent, then she would continue her evening and return home in the late afternoon. If she felt guilty, she would return quite quickly. We didn't have to wait long. She walked in as if nothing had happened, but kept her eyes on me to gauge my mood. "God, you surprised me at Belinda's," she said. "Why didn't you stay and be with us?" she added. "You looked like you were having a good time, and I didn't want to disturb you." I said it with sarcastic innocence. "Well, you could at least say hello to the others," she said. "Ha, others," I said. "I only noticed your long-lost doctor friend." I think by this time she realized that I was a little angry, but she tried to make it my problem. "Well, there's this jealousy again. Greg is a friend of mine whom I haven't seen for a long time, and we were just talking. Why do you always think every guy is trying to steal me? Other than at a party, I hadn't seen him for years, and we were good friends when we worked at Swedish Hospital." "Oh, I see," I say. "Besides the party, you didn't have a chance to meet him at work, and that's what you were doing tonight?" I ask. "Exactly," she says. "So you didn't have the opportunity to catch up in the hospital," I repeat. "Brian, no. I'm busy at work," she states firmly, her voice a little louder. "Okay, so no dinners together. And not just the two of you in the corner of the cafeteria several times over the past 3 weeks. So, just to be clear, you haven't had any one-on-one time with a guy they call a girl chaser?" I ask with feigned innocence. "Well, maybe," she says meekly. "Forget it, Hillary, you lied to me." "You know it, and I know it," I tell her quietly but decisively. "What can you say in your defense?" I ask. She looks away and then tears well up. She knows this is my weakness, and I think she wants me to hold her and tell her everything will be okay. Never. As I said, Hillary is something of a sexual flirt, but at least as far as I know, she has never lied to me. This caused a crack in my trust in her. When I ask her for an explanation again, she runs upstairs, crying. Again, I understand that she wants me to come and comfort her, but it just doesn't happen. When I get up, I see that she is in the guest bedroom. With my job, I get up and leave the house early, long before she gets up. I get distracted at work, but I decide some things in my life. With or without Hillary, I will be leaving the dreary weather of Washington State, and I'm moving to Hawaii. Several guys in my office have moved and are working remotely. One of my good buddies, Randy, who started working around the same time as me, lives in North Idaho and loves it. He keeps asking me why I still go to the office. Why don't I live where I want? Because there are no advantages to the office in Seattle. I've always loved beaches, and Hawaii is my favorite island. Weather, ocean, beaches, people. We vacationed there every year, and I decided the Kona area was my favorite. Although Hillary also liked Hawaii, she was not in the mood to move. That's where everything hung. I spent the day researching real estate in the Kona area. I usually get home before Hillary, but when I returned on Friday evening, she was already there. This will be interesting, I thought. "Hi, honey," she called as I entered. "I have grilled salmon. Would you like a beer?" she asked. I walked into the kitchen, and she acted as if Thursday had never happened. I took the beer from her, but didn't kiss her. I took the day off, needed to clean the house, and I wanted to have dinner at home today. "Does that sound good?" she asked. I sat down and stared at her. "What?" she asked. "I'm still waiting for an explanation after you lied to me yesterday," I stated. "Oh, Brian, I wasn't lying. I was just confused. I knew you were angry, and I didn't want to upset you even more." She tried to sweep everything under the rug. "So, do you want teriyaki sauce or drinaturku for salmon?" she asked. "I don't care about the fucking salmon. I want to know why you lied to me," I said. I rarely use profanity, so she knew I was furious. "What's wrong with that?" she objected. "Greg was in the restaurant, and we were talking. Am I allowed to have friends, or are you too insecure for that?" She went on the offensive. I was starting to get really angry. My therapist whispered in my ear, "Mentally take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Here are the facts. You were alone with this guy for over an hour at Carly's party, and he didn't know we were married." During the entire conversation, this topic was not raised. Fact 2. You regularly ate lunch with him, and it's just the two of you in the cafeteria, and this causes gossip in the workplace. Fact 3. You communicated with him at Belinda separately from the rest of the group. And finally, Fact 4. You lied to me about dating him just was catching up missed. By my count, you had at least 6 hours to meet him one-on-one. So what's the big deal? She just sat and looked down. I mentally prepared myself for the possible end of my marriage and began to think about a fresh start in Hawaii. I really loved Hillary and loved everything we did together, but I couldn't stand the lies. I knew that I was jealous, and if I didn't get the truth from her, everything would be over. She remained silent. Finally, "I'm very sorry I deceived you, but can I explain?" she said. I sat and waited. "As you know, my father left when I was 10 years old. I have always sought recognition from men. I know you know about this. In high school, I always liked the bad jock boys. I had a certain reputation. When I graduated from nursing school, all those bad boy jocks were replaced with doctors. I admit I was turned on by confident males back then. I knew some of this, but not all. When, after nursing school, I got a job at Swedish hospital, there were a lot of young people there, and we formed a kind of clique. Carly and some of the doctors were there, including Greg. I dated a few, but nothing lasted. It seemed like they only wanted sex. I didn't know if I wanted to hear such details. All the women were attracted to Greg, and he was a bit of a player. I guess I was in love with him too. I started dating one of his friends, Nick Gardiner, a radiologist. I soon realized that this was not serious, but we continued dating for several more months. I also learned that Nick and Greg were roommates and good friends. One night we were at a party, Nick and I, and Greg was there too. I don't know exactly whose house it was. There was a lot of drinking, and apparently Nick talked me into going to one of the upstairs bedrooms. I also drank a little. It was definitely too much information, but I needed to hear how it all happened. Greg joined us later. "Stop it," I shout. "Are you saying that you slept with him too?" I ask. She doesn't say a word for a whole minute. And finally, "Sort of. Did you actually sleep with him?" I hissed at her. At that moment, she started crying, and I got angry. I didn't know what to do. I guess the good news, if you can call it that, is that at least I learned the truth. Nobody would make this shit up. She then reveals that she felt terrible the next morning. She learned from others that she was starting to get a bad reputation at the hospital. She quits partying and focuses on her career and the rest of her life. "I met you soon after that," she said. "You had a relationship with his friend?" I said decisively. "I know I was so stupid, but I was in love with Greg," she screamed. "So, you're still in love with him? That's what it's all about?" I asked. No, I love you. I was confused. This guy, who I was once interested in, was suddenly interested in me. I would never do anything. It was just flattering. I tell her I need to think about it. We never have dinner, and I go for a walk, which ends up lasting several hours. No wonder it's raining. A month ago, I was happy. Things were going great. I had a beautiful, sexy woman as my wife, and I didn't worry about anything. Now I doubt the moral character of my wife, and am not sure that I trust her. One thing was certain. I would definitely leave Puget Sound for Hawaii, with or without Hillary. Then again, I knew she was a little wild before we got married. But sleeping with a guy and his roommate, it was pretty much too much. On the other hand, we were not married and did not even know each other at that time. I had casual sex before we got married. But, and I know this sounds sexist, it was different with men. When I finally got home, I was confused by several questions. The only thing I was sure of was that I was moving to Hawaii. The next few days were quite stressful. I was still trying to figure out what to do with Hillary. I was sure she didn't do anything with this Greg guy, but I thought she got too close to him. At one point on Saturday afternoon, I was ready to divorce her and move to Hawaii. Start all over again. On the other hand, I remembered all those wonderful holidays that Hillary spent in Hawaii. The thought of being there without her was not as good as with her. I had to think what to do. Well, as you understand, we stayed together and moved. Hillary professed her love for me and rejected any attraction to Greg. I wanted to believe her, and I sort of did. I needed to look after her. Our life is on Ollie Drive was great. She worked 3 days a week, and I had my own schedule. There were busy times in my business, but there was also a lot of time when I could miss work when Hill wasn't working. My workload went up and down. It really felt like a permanent vacation. I ran on Alii Drive almost every day, and when Hillary was free, we went together. We explored the island and found beautiful waterfalls, jungles, majestic views, and amazing beaches. One of the special things about the Big Island is that it is the newest island in the Hawaiian island chain. That's why there are fewer beaches here. You had to get to good beaches by car, but they were worth it. Our two favorite beaches are Kauai and Hapuna Beach, but one particular beach that we loved was Makalana Beach, Beach M. This Thursday, we decided to explore Beach. We hadn't been there yet at that time. Following the directions from the guidebook, we turned onto the road leading to this beach. There was a chain across the road and a sign with the inscription "Closed on Thursdays." From our spot, we could see the ocean, and it seemed like it was only a mile or so away. We decided to walk on the lava to see it. It was definitely worth it. Beach is beautiful, fine white sand and blue-green ocean. It was an amazing sight. We walked along the beach left and right and realized that there was no one else on the entire beach, probably because everyone knew that the road was closed on Thursdays. We chose a place to sit in the sun and enjoy the beach. After a while, I wanted to cool off. After we returned home, Hillary went to the shower. I felt like I made the right choice having moved to Hawaii, and the right choice staying with Hillary. The next day, as I was leaving the training room, I noticed Banks on the lawn, slowly and carefully performing a martial arts kata. He's wearing only shorts, no shoes, and no shirt. The guy is in good shape. His skin is golden brown. I remembered that he looked sleek. He is different from me, stockier and more muscular. As I was leaving, he called out to me. "Brian, how are you?" We start talking and end up planning dinner for Friday night. No pau hana this week. We take poke, this one of the main dishes of Hawaiian cuisine, a salad made from raw diced fish at one of the establishments in the city, and on the way back we stop and have a drink at Don the Beachcomber. Banks tells me about his development project near Pahoa in the Hilo area. He has a development plan for the plot of land he purchased. He also talks about his counseling practice. He says his mission is to help couples have more fulfilling relationships. He says his clients usually don't pay and that he gets contacted by word of mouth. My goal is to help people explore everything life has to offer. Don't be limited by other people's ideas and rules, he proclaimed. If you and Hillary would like to schedule a session, we can discuss these concepts in more detail, he continued with genuine charm. I'll think about it, I said. I really didn't understand what he was talking about. When we arrived home, Hillary told me about her conversation with Chloe. She appears to be a smart woman, but she took shots at Banks a couple of times. Hillary also said that K.H. Lowe went out of her way to let her know that it was her money that paid for much of their lifestyle. Interesting. So far, in my opinion, Banks has been a good guy, a little charming, and I haven't seen anything wrong with him at this point. On Wednesday evening, Banks comes to our apartment to show us a real estate prospectus. I tell him I'm not interested. He looks disappointed, but quickly returns to his confident manner, as if my answer didn't hurt him. Most Wednesday nights, Hillary was exhausted from 3 10-hour shifts in a row. Tonight was no exception. Banks was attentive and cheerful, and this cheered her up. He asked about her schedule, and she said that Thursday was a day when she could relax. Most Thursdays we went to the beach with her, where she could soak up the sun, swim in the ocean, and relax. So far I have managed to sneak out on Thursdays to join her. What are your favorite beaches? Banks asked. Our favorites so far are Quabe and Hapuna, Hillary answered. Then she looked at me and winked. Since our first visit, we have visited M Beach several times. I smiled back at her. We ended up inviting Banks to join. To us in Quabe. I wanted her to continue to get to know Banks the same way I did. He had proven himself to be a good friend, and I thought that he and Chloe might become a married couple of friends for us. Hillary wasn't wearing the skimpiest bikini, but this one was pretty tiny. Hillary looked great, and I caught him looking at her a couple of times. I couldn't blame him, but for a brief moment, a small flame of jealousy flared up inside me. At some point, I felt hot and went for a swim. Both Hillary and Banks refused, no big deal. When I was returning from swimming, I saw that they were laughing and joking about something, but when I approached the blanket, they stopped talking about anything. On the way home, Banks asked us if we were diving. Neither of us studied, but we were both interested. Banks told us about the place in Horses, where you can take several lessons and get a certificate. We are interested. Hillary was especially interested. The longer we lived here, the happier I was, and I wanted Hillary to love this lifestyle as much as I did. I was glad that we could start a new hobby together. Banks said that he has a boat, and that he has a special place that he goes to with an amazing reef and always interesting sea life. We planned to go on a boat trip with him in a few weeks. When we returned to the apartment after Banks had left, we discussed the day. You're right, he's a very nice guy. I liked our day today, Hillary told me. I was glad that she thought so. If he and Chloe were going to be our friends, I wanted us all to get along. Hey, what's the big joke you two were laughing at when I went swimming? I asked her. She looked at me, trying to remember what I was asking her, and then quickly looked away as the shadow of a smile crossed her lips in memory. Oh, nothing, Banks was just trying to be funny, she said, and I thought she blushed. Funny? Funny about what? I asked, perhaps too sternly. Nothing, you don't need to control everything like that, she said, and that was the end of it. We signed up for scuba diving lessons. The first step was to take the online course. That's what we did. On Saturday, we met at one of the hotel's large pools to get hands-on use of the equipment. The final stage is 4 open dives to obtain a certificate. Banks told us that he was the instructor, and why don't we practice on the day we planned to go boating with him? This seemed like a good idea. We met at the port and went to sea. We walked a little past the airport, less than a mile away. The water here was blue and calm. We suited up in our snorkeling gear, and Banks told us about the safety precautions the instructor had shown us at the hotel pool. He also told us that the ocean here is not deep, and we will just dive for a few minutes to make sure everything is okay. We wore short wetsuits along with our scuba gear. What about sharks? Asked Hillary. Occasionally, there are small reef sharks. I saw one only once. The big ones, like tiger ones, are not found here, Banks explained. We went down the stairs and carefully began to explore the underwater world. He was wonderful. I didn't have any breathing problems. This is very cool, I thought. I started to go deeper and felt a pain in my sinuses that was pressing on my head. I tried to ignore it, but the deeper I went, the more painful it became. I had to get up. It didn't even pass near the surface now. I needed to get out. I sat on the boat, taking off my gear, and gradually my head began to return to normal. The pressure seemed to be easing. A few minutes later, Banks and Hillary popped out of the water and asked what was going on. I explained about the head. Hillary started to walk up the stairs to inspect me, but I told them to keep diving. I'll be okay. After a short conversation, when I told them everything was fine, they continued the dive. About half an hour later, they surfaced. Hillary was so excited, and by all accounts, she had a great time. I really hoped that the cause of my discomfort would not persist. As a thank you, we invited Banks to dinner. Over the past few weeks, a very warm and friendly relationship has developed between us. When we came to Hawaii, I wanted to make good friends and have a social life. Looks like we were moving in the right direction. Sometimes the fact that Hillary was comfortable with Banks caused flashes of jealousy, but I knew that was my problem and tried to suppress these feelings. Friday night was Pauhana night again at the Palms. We sat at a big table with Clarence and Lynn, Platamy, and Banks. "Is Chloe coming?" I asked Banks. "No, unfortunately, she is in Los Angeles for the next few weeks. Probably for big banking matters," he replied. I had to admit that he wasn't the least bit upset about his wife leaving. We all talked, socialized, ate, and drank. At one point, I saw Hillary talking to young Corey White. I waited a few minutes and joined them. They talked about scuba diving. She told him about my problems, and he admitted that it was a real problem and that some people suffer from such pressure. At that moment, a gorgeous blonde approached us. Corey introduced us. "This is my older sister Kiki. She doesn't live in the Palms full time, but stays in our family apartment when she's in Hawaii," Corey told us. She is blonde, slim, and beautiful. Walking Barbie doll. We learned that she is an independent professional and has an apartment in Santa Clara. During our short conversation, I learned that she was divorced. "I love Hawaii and try to come here as often as I can," she says. I'm starting to reconsider my first impression of Corey. He seems like a pretty serious guy. At this point, Banks comes over and the mood immediately changes. Kiki, who just a moment ago was talking and laughing, looks unfriendly and becomes quiet. Corey has a look on his face like he wants to punch Banks. Banks are all charm, oblivious to negative vibes. What's going on here? Kiki takes her leave and Corey leaves without saying a word. It was strange. We start talking about scuba diving and Hillary talks about how much she enjoyed the experience. Banks talks about different techniques and seems to have a lot of knowledge in this area. "Brian, I really hope we can figure out what's causing you discomfort." "I wouldn't want to stop. It's so much fun," Hillary adds. "Well, just because I might not be able to go, of course you still can," I say. "He's right, and I'd be happy to be your guide," Banks adds. I hope he's just a good friend. My work either appears, disappears, or suddenly overwhelms me. I spend my days in the back room analyzing commodity markets and talking to people on the phone. One of the keys to my success was the ability to dig deep. A weather event such as a tornado, drought, or flood can quickly change commodity prices. A few percentage points in one direction or another can make or break you from a lot of money. One of my school friends, Dan Bain, is a climate scientist. Let's face it, Dan is very strange and very smart at the same time. He has all these weather forecasts months in advance. Dan also still lives at home and doesn't use a phone. You have to see it in person. Like I said, he's weird. There's an agricultural conference in Seattle in a few weeks. Such information may also be useful. My plan was to attend a 2-day conference and then visit Dan's parents in Federal Way and hang out with Dan. Approximately a 3-day trip. Maybe Hillary would like to spend a few days in Seattle. I called my sales manager in the Seattle office and told him about my plans. Brian, I think this is a great idea. This will go well with our mentoring program starting next Monday, my sales manager said. I completely forgot about this obligation. When I told them I was moving, my company had an ironclad rule to mentor new employees. I was mentored, and that helped. Remote employees were assigned an apprentice who worked with them for 1 week at a time and continued to help them after a week of one-on-one work. I agreed to this. Fortunately, I had no choice. It would have been a week and a half, but we both had friends and family to see in Puget Sound. That evening, when Hillary returned home, I told her about going to Seattle for 10 days. "Brian, I can't do this," exclaimed Hillary. "Why?" I asked. "That would mean missing 2 weeks of shifts in a row, and I'm still on probation," she said. "I don't know if I can take at least 1 week off," she continued. Oh shit. I didn't want to be separated from her for so long, but living in a tropical paradise requires such sacrifices. The following week, I made an appointment with an ear, eye, nose, and throat doctor about my scuba problem. The Asian doctor asked me about the pain. He examined my nose, throat, and ears. He paid special attention to my left ear. "Mr. Rivers, it looks like you have a problem with the eardrum in your ear. I would highly discourage you from engaging in underwater activities in depths greater than 10 feet. Snorkeling is probably fine, but scuba diving can permanently damage your hearing," he said. "Great, now I've got Hillary hooked on scuba diving, but I can't participate myself." On Wednesday, Banks and I went for a run along Aliyah Drive. We discussed work and life. It doesn't seem like he and Chloe had a particularly close marriage. We were talking in front of the building when Hillary returned home from work. "What a day," she said. "I can't wait until tomorrow to go to the beach. I need to soak up the sun, swim in the ocean, and not think about work," she added. "Tomorrow at 9:30, Banks asked. I thought I was a little confused. I was glad that he had become such a good friend that he felt comfortable inviting himself, but he could have waited until we asked him. "Sounds good," Hillary said, and that was the end of it. On Thursday morning, I was up and working by 5 a.m. The markets were going up and down wildly, which was very unnerving. The main thing in order to make money was to be a few steps ahead of everyone else. Suddenly, my door swung open. "Brian, you are not ready." "We're leaving in 10 minutes, she said, Hillary. "I completely forgot," I said. There was no way I could leave. "Hill, honey, I don't think I can go today, at least not yet," I told her. I saw that she was starting to get angry. At that moment, my phone rang. Before answering, I said, "Can you just go with Banks?" I asked. She looked at me long and intently, turned and left. I answered the call, and that was the end of it. The good thing about this time zone is that things usually end by mid-afternoon. I thought about getting dressed and trying to find them. I called Hillary, but she didn't answer. I closed my eyes just for a moment, I told myself. I must have fallen dead asleep because the next moment Hillary woke me up. From the shadows, I realized that it was about 6 o'clock. After she comes out of the bathroom, I thank her for the pleasant return home, and I barely manage to make her smile. I ask her about the beach day, and she replies that they went to Kua Bay. I try to find out more details about her day, but she is somewhat uncharacteristically reticent. If we hadn't just had sex, I would have started to suspect that I had done something strange. My work continues to be hectic, and Friday is another long day. Hillary comes and goes from the apartment, running errands all day. The weekend goes by calmly, but I still have the feeling that something is wrong. When I ask Hillary, she says everything is fine. Monday comes and markets become volatile. I make money, but I earn it. I actually make a profit on my independent account. My goal is to retire early and enjoy life in Hawaii to the fullest. Hillary works her regular schedule from Monday to Wednesday. On Thursday morning, I'm working hard, and around 9 o'clock, she comes to see me. "Are you going to the beach?" she asks. I look up, and she immediately knows the answer is no. I'm engrossed in notes, and both computer screens are on. I have to leave for Seattle next Tuesday for meetings and mentoring, and I have a lot to get done by then. I'm stressed. She kisses me on the cheek with a strange expression on her face, and just as I'm about to ask about the details of her beach day schedule, the phone rings. Soon I'm looking at soybean futures. That evening at 6:30, the dinner table was set with sushi I had bought in town. I kind of wanted to make it up to Hillary because I've been so busy lately. By 7 o'clock, she was still not home, so I finally called her. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'll be there in 2 minutes," she said. She appears and thanks me for a wonderful dinner. I ask about his day, and it looks like he and Banks were at the beach again. I start doing deep breathing exercises to help me stay calm. "Which beach did you go to today?" I ask. She hesitates, looks away, and answers. "Quabe." For some reason, I feel like she's lying to me. I know I'm leaving in a few days, and I want to stay calm, so I don't am asking her. At least for now. After dinner, we both become lost in our thoughts. There was no sex in bed that night, but she snuggled up to me and yawned. "Brian," she asks, "do you think we get the most out of life? It is very strange." "Yes," I say. "I mean, don't you think our lives are boring, as if there is something more than what we experience?" "Not really, but what?" I ask. I have no idea where she is going with this or where these deep life philosophical questions come from. "It doesn't matter," she says, and before we can continue our conversation, she's snoring softly. On Friday, the market suddenly stabilized. I'm not sure how long this will last, but if typical trends continue, the next few weeks should be manageable. I leave the office in the middle of the day on Friday and Hillary is not in the apartment. I call her, thinking maybe we can do something fun this afternoon, but she doesn't pick up. I decided to go for a run along Aliyah Drive. After my run, I take a shower. It seems Hillary just finished his shower. I think it's like two ships passing in the night. She gets out, and I go to the shower. She's not interested. When she comes out, I notice a new tan in the closed areas. I wonder when was the last time we were at M Beach. Friday night is Pau Hana night. On the way down, I'm asking Hillary about her day, but I don't get any specific answers about what she did all day. We settled down in our usual place next to Toplatamy. Lynn and Clarence are there too. Banks are absent. To be honest, I'm already a little tired of him. Plus, it seemed like Hillary was spending more time with him than I was. I try to moderate my jealousy. I see Work White, who I began to really like. We start talking, and he tells me about his research in marine biology. It's quite interesting. "Brian, why don't you go out on the boat with me on Monday? I have something to test this day that I think you might find interesting," Corey said. "Perhaps, but what time?" I ask. The market slowed down, and I worked very hard. Hillary works all day, and this sounds like a nice break. I'll be at the port at 11. If you know where Redmond moored his boat, then I'm a couple of slips down. This is Kon-Tiki, you can't miss it. If you are not there by 11:30, I will assume something has happened," he told me. Returning to our table, I don't see Hillary. I try to act casual, but I can't seem to notice her. I talk to Clarence and Lynn, glancing over their shoulders from time to time, trying to find Hillary. A few minutes later, Clarence says, "I think I saw your friend behind the pool." "About," I say, and quickly glance in that direction before I can stop myself. "Don't worry, your friend Mr. Paldi Redmond was with her," Lynn adds, perhaps with a hint of sarcasm. "Go, my boy, find her." Clarence lets me go and I leave. When I approach them, they seem to be having a tense conversation. I'm not sure I like the way Hillary looks at him like every word he says means something. They don't notice me until I'm practically next to them. When they see me, Hillary looks flustered, like she's been caught doing something wrong. Banks are still charming. I'm starting to see this fascination in a different context. "Brian," Banks exclaims and comes up to me for a hug. I don't reciprocate his feelings. "What kind of privacy is this away from the event?" I ask. Hillary still hasn't said anything and looks like she doesn't know the words. Banks chimes in. "Sometimes the old gang gets a little callous," he says. "I was simply describing to Hill some of my self-actualization exercises. With her stressful profession, There are many ways to stay calm and manage stress, he preaches. Hillary looks at me expectantly, hoping that I will believe all the nonsense that just came out of his mouth. And Hill, since when did they know each other so well? In fact, Brian, we discussed the possibility that the three of us would do counseling together to broaden our outlook on life. As I said before, I do not charge money for my sessions. This is my gift to humanity, he continues. I look straight at Hillary and say, I go back to our friends, drink 2 more beers, and go home. You can join me if you want. I deliberately ignored Banks and all the crap he just said. A gift to humanity. I walk back to our table, and about 30 seconds later, Hillary is next to me. Why were you so rude to Banks? He's your good friend, she asks in a quiet but firm voice. I freeze for a moment, and then I tell her. I'm starting to feel something from him that I definitely don't like. What are you talking about? She asks. With all the stress in my life lately, and knowing that in a few days I'm leaving for Seattle for almost 2 weeks, I really don't want to get into this with her. I make a silent vow to myself to distance myself from him as soon as I return from my business trip. Hillary and I will also have a serious conversation when I return. Never mind it, I say. On Monday, I joined Corey at the Kentucky. We talked about his work, about the ocean and marine life in the area. It's really very interesting, and he seems passionate about it. I'm working on a project to study tiger sharks in the Hawaiian Islands. I collaborate with the Hawaiian Institute of Marine Biology. We have developed an experimental attractant that I believe will quickly lure sharks to the location where it is injected. If we find out what attracts them, we hope to redesign the process and create an effective repeller. I've actually never tried this combination before. Brian, you will be the first witness to this test. Corey pulled out what looked like an 8-ounce bottle from the styrofoam cooler. He dipped a protein ball made from fish byproducts and seaweed into the water, then poured about half the container onto it, then released it. He then set the timer on his watch. Corey told me that sharks have an exceptional sense of smell, and that tiger sharks can detect a scent from up to a mile away. We watched and waited. So far, nothing has happened. Just wait, I'm sure of it, he assured me. Suddenly, the surface of the ocean seemed to change and come to life. I saw my first dorsal fin. Then again and again. The protein balls were suddenly attacked and quickly eaten with furious fury. It was exciting and scary. Corey explained that the tiger shark feeds indiscriminately. She has huge, powerful jaws that can split a turtle's shell. Tiger sharks can reach 15 feet in length and are second in size only to white sharks. They are considered primate carnivores. The boat shook a couple of times, but after 15 minutes, the sea became calm again. That was exciting, I told Corey. He seemed pleased with the results and spent some time typing information on his tablet. It definitely doesn't make me want to get in the water anytime soon, I said. It was a very unnatural situation, Corey told me. Without the attractant, we would never have lured the sharks here. Corey went downstairs to hide his tablet while I looked at the vials and the styrofoam cooler. There appeared to be a dozen vials in a disorganized heap in the styrofoam cooler. I thought. A moment later, Corey came on deck. I quickly turned to him. Brian, there is another reason why I asked you to come with me today. Corey said this with a serious expression on his face. You can tell me to mind my own business when I'm done, but I think there's something you need to know, he continued. To say I was confused at this point would be an understatement. I just kept my mouth shut and listened to what Corey had to say. He asked if I remembered his older sister Kiki. How could I forget this beauty? She was married to a great guy, Ben Green. Ben worked in finance, and they visited the family apartment in Hawaii 3-4 times a year. Ben was able to do some of his work remotely. Apparently, she and Ben had become friends with the other Kona Palms residents. One of them was Banks Redmond. Banks has a graceful charm, asking questions that soon become personal. Yes, I know, I said. One day, Ben had to return to California early, and Kiki continued to communicate with Banks. Corey told me that he was an undergraduate student at the University of California at the time. All this information came from Kiki. Banks grew closer and closer to Kiki while Ben was away. He talks about his consultations and how he helps people expand their horizons and live more experienced lives. It seemed familiar to me. Long story short, Kiki had sex with him. She soon realized that he was no different from some creepy frat guy trying to get a girl into his room at a party on campus. She was angry at him and even more angry at herself for falling for his bullshit. Banks continued to try to continue the relationship, but Kiki told him to get out. About a week later, Ben returned. Kiki felt so guilty that she told Ben about everything. Ben was furious and went looking for Banks. Banks was smart enough to stay away. Kiki and Ben tried to make things work, but the combination of her guilt and his anger was too much, and they divorced. She hasn't dated since then. I still talk to Ben sometimes. He's a good guy. I think he's engaged to someone, Corey told me. That fucking Banks ruined Kiki's life. I just sat and thought. Banks Redmond is a master manipulator. I truly considered him a good friend. Brian, I promised Kiki I would never tell anyone about this, but when I see him hanging out with Hillary, I remember what Kiki told me about how he manipulated her. She also made me promise to never get into a physical confrontation with him, even though God knows I wanted to kill the bastard. Kiki is ashamed of it all and is very upset that it cost her her marriage, he said. Does Chloe, his wife, know about all this? I asked. I'm sure she knows, or at least suspects. There are rumors that they do not have a prenuptial agreement. If she divorced him, she would lose a fortune. She's rich. They remain married but live separate lives. I'm leaving for Australia next week, and it will be several months before I return. I don't want to question Hillary's character. I just wanted to give you this information, Corey said. Thank you, I told him. I have a lot to think about. We dock at the port and pick up our equipment. As we walk up the ramp, he sets down the styrofoam cooler and opens it. I see him counting in his head. Suddenly, he looks up at me. I look into his eyes and don't say anything. We look at each other, and then a small smile appears on his face. Not a word was said. On the way home, I started to seethe. I thought I was going to kill Banks. Lost in my thoughts, I almost hit a local boy when I ran a stop sign. He swore at me, and I didn't blame him. This reminds me of another incident that happened about 7 or 8 years ago in Seattle. I've always been short-tempered. I won't go into details, but my family has had a lot of ups and downs. There was physical abuse in the family, and I had anger issues because of it. This energy fueled me on the football field. I was all conference in high school and ended up getting recruited to play for Pacific Lutheran. It was the only way to go to college. My family had no money for tuition. So in a way, my temper helped me get a higher education. Along the way, it cost me several girlfriends and other friendships. I knew I needed to solve this problem. At this point, I was not that long out of college and was still new to the commodity business, and it was stressful. One Monday evening, I was driving through downtown Seattle. If you've never been there, the concentration of homeless people, drunks, and punks there is higher than usual. All stressed and not concentrating on driving, I almost hit a skateboarder at an intersection. I raised my palms up to let him know it was my fault. Well, this tall, thin, long-haired punk breaks my headlight. A fight breaks out. I find myself in the back seat of a police car. An ambulance pulls up outside, and on the other side of the intersection is another police car with its headlights on. There are many people around who want to see what is happening. I pray that there is no one there who recognizes me. Fortunately, there were witnesses who told the police that I was attacked first, and that there were 2 of them, and I was alone. Some even have phone footage showing they were the instigators. They collect my data and release me. They said they would likely contact me in the next few days. The next day, I received a call from the police. They asked me to come later in the afternoon to make a statement, and I came. Here's what happened. No one doubts that I was defending myself. There was plenty of evidence to support this. Due to the severity of the beating, I need to contact the assistant district attorney. We talked for a long time, and she said that no charges would be brought against me, but that I was required to undergo mental health counseling. Anger management is part of mental health. For the next 8 weeks, I was scheduled for group therapy every Wednesday evening at the Swedish hospital. I probably could have resisted, but I knew something had to be done. The truth is, these consultations really helped me and changed my life in several ways. I have learned to stop myself when I get angry, slow down, think about the situation, analyze it, and make a plan. I take deep breaths all the time to slow down. Deep breaths, deep exhales. This really helps. Friends and people at work commented that I seemed more relaxed and that I was in a good mood more often. I didn't get angry as often and laughed more. I also started attracting more women. Perhaps my anger had scared them off before. By the way, about women, I met Hillary at Swedish hospital. I noticed her in the corridors, this incredibly sexy woman who had a hint of sadness about her. One evening after a counseling session, I asked her to have coffee and, surprisingly, she agreed. I truly believe that without the counseling I received, I would never have asked her out. My goal was to get her into bed, but as things progressed, I started to like her. I was a little unclear if she liked me too, but she kept saying yes when I kept asking her out. She told me that I was not like the others she dated. At the time, I didn't know if it was good or bad. So this is our last date, and looked at me. I was actually thinking about an exit strategy. I liked her and just found out she was great, but I wasn't really looking for a commitment. I must have waited too long to answer, because she began to cry quietly. Wait, I said. Nobody talks about the last date, at least I don't. Now tell me, what are all these tears for? I asked. We talk, and she tells me how wonderful I am, and how I'm so different from the average guy, and how all doctors are narcissistic assholes. I don't ask her too much about all those asshole doctors, but I'm sure she has a few stories. I think of Hillary. She looks great. She's fun to be around. She has brains, not an empty head. We continue to meet, and as you already understand, we remain together. At least for now. At the intersection at Aliyah, I stopped to collect my thoughts. I don't know if anything happened, but now I know Banks' modus operandi. My goal is to get Hillary and myself out of his web. After this, I will need to come up with a serious plan for Hillary. As Clarence once told me, good relationships are built on trust. Right now, our foundation is not as strong as I would like. I'm thinking about canceling the trip, but I'm preparing for a big step in the next few weeks. The market is ripe for profit. I know I'll gain a little more knowledge at the conference, and more importantly, from Dan, my brilliant climate scientist friend. I am confident that I can take the right steps. I'm calm, I'm in observation mode, and I'm going to see what happens with Hillary and Banks. On Monday evening, she returns home and is in a bad mood. I'm trying to figure out how to approach her, but the time is not right. I know that if I push her at the wrong time, it could backfire and make it much more difficult to get any information. Tuesday evening goes a little differently. After work, she becomes calmer and friendlier, and we enjoy a nice dinner. I tell her that Clarence and Lynn are taking me to the airport on Wednesday, and could she pick me up a week later on Friday? She agrees. Hillary, I ask, are you sure you can't come with me? It will be like a vacation. I know the chances are slim, but I have to try. She doesn't even consider the possibility and quickly dismisses it, citing work as the reason. Then I begin to broach the uncomfortable topic of Banks. I tell her that I think we need to distance ourselves from him a little. I tell her, without elaborating, that I've heard some negative things about him. I ask her to stay away from him while I'm gone. She explodes. How dare I say such things about our friend? Banks listens to her and has begun counseling her, and she is feeling much better, she adds. Now I want her not to communicate with him until I'm gone for 2 weeks, and she has no other friends. She got angry, and now I'm angry. I don't trust him, and neither should you, I declare. Well, jealousy again, she says. And then everything goes downhill. She ends up sleeping in the guest room, even after I try to apologize. This evening really went awry. Before leaving for the airport, I feel like our marriage is on the rocks, and she has no idea how serious our situation is. I remembered a bumper sticker I saw once. The first line reads, "If you love something, set it free," and the second line reads, "If it doesn't come back, hunt it down and kill it." I thought it was appropriate for the situation. Due to the time change, it is evening when I land. I rent a car and go to the Marriott. It's 9:30 p.m. Pacific time, which means 6:30 p.m. in Hawaii. I didn't call her that evening. I'm tired. The next day, there is an agricultural conference, and I am collecting good information. After that, I communicate with several people and learn a lot of useful things. I'm typing my notes on my iPad when someone says there's a cocktail party in the next room. I look at my watch. It's a little after 6 p.m. Pacific time, which means it's 3 p.m. in Hawaii. I'm trying to reach Hillary. She doesn't answer the phone. I have a few cocktails and enough snacks that I don't need dinner. Around 8:30, I tried to call again, but there was no answer. The conference ends on Friday mid-afternoon. I think the information received was useful. While I'm entering new entries, Hillary calls. "Hello, how is the conference going?" she asks. And we discussed my trip so far. "I tried to call you yesterday. What were you doing?" I ask. I want to know what she's doing, but I'm walking on eggshells. Getting into a big fight over banks wouldn't be good. She says everything is fine. Ran errands, went grocery shopping, etc. I ask if she went to the beach yesterday, and she says yes, but not for long. I ask which beach. She hesitates and says that he is in Quabe. I really want to ask if Banks was with her, but I don't. I ask what her plans are for the weekend. She says that there will be no Pauhana today, and that she plans to have a quiet weekend. I tell her I love her as we hang up. This phone conversation went well. My strategy is to be sweet and loving to her. If Banks tries to seduce her, I will hope that her love for me will overcome his advances. On Saturday, I'm going to the Baines house in Federal Way. They were our neighbors in Tacoma when I was growing up. Mr. and Mrs. Bain are nice people, and I'm always glad to see them. Like I said, Dan is weird. He literally lives in his parents' basement, but it's not as weird as you might think. One of Dan's habits is that he is an absolute neat freak. Everything in his basement is clean and organized. He has filing cabinets and bookshelves where everything is cataloged and orderly. He sits at his desk, which is located in the very center of the basement. There are two huge monitors on the table. There is a small cot in the corner where he sleeps. Dan is wearing pants and a short-sleeve button-down shirt. He rarely leaves the house. It's obvious that he's happy to see me. I don't think he has many guests. We spend some time talking about the past, about our old neighborhood and the people we grew up with. Honestly, I find it a good time to spend social time with Dan. I don't know how he makes money or who exactly pays him. I know what he earns. He builds complex computer weather models using all kinds of data, both current and historical. He already tried to explain this to me, but I quickly got lost. Like I said, Dan is a genius. I've already asked him if he ever provides information to people in my business. He replied no. If there's one thing you can rely on when dealing with Dan, it's his absolute honesty. I have a list of things I want to ask him. I need to keep him in the loop, otherwise we'll get lost in topics that could take hours. I ask him these specific questions and also ask him to chart the weather for the next 90 days or so and bring various factors into the equation. His mother brings us lunch, and we continue talking for several more hours. Then I leave. I tell him that I will call, and he says that please don't. Dan doesn't like the phone. He will send the weather maps I requested within 24 hours. In the evening, I try to call Hillary, but again I get voicemail. On Sunday, I go for a run. Back at the hotel, I begin working on a trading strategy based on the information I have collected. I have a very good feeling. I've never dived this deep before. Finally, with Hillary, let's communicate. She seems eager to talk to me. This is a good sign, I think. She asks me about the conference and the visit to Dan Bain. She sounds very cheerful. I tell her she sounds happy. Oh, Brian, I just love this place. Hawaii has everything I wanted and more. I like the weather, I like our apartment, and even work turned out better than I thought. I'm just really enjoying our decision to move, she exclaims. It makes me happy. It was really my decision to move, and Hillary was somewhat reluctant about it. I'm glad she likes Hawaii as much as I do. I ask her what caused this sudden revival. I talk to Banks, and he helps me better understand myself and what life experiences are like, she continues. I'm silent. I'm starting to get angry. I take so many deep breaths that I might pass out. I wonder what crap this asshole is feeding her. After listening to Corey's story, I had a good idea. Oh, really? I say calmly. Tell me about how he helps you, I ask, trying to remain as calm as possible. I sit and listen to her talk about her feelings, what life has to offer, expanding her horizons, and finding true happiness in all areas of her life. About how Banks helps her realize things that explain some of her negative feelings. I'm starting to feel nauseous. I'm afraid I'll explode. I use one of my anger management techniques and calmly but firmly walk away from the conversation. I told her I would call this week. I'm thinking about this situation. Corey's story about Kiki kept playing in my head. I had several options. 1. I could have booked a ticket home and intervened. This was ruled out. I will not do it. 2. Believe that she loves me too much to ever give in to him. I'd say it's 5,050 at this point. 3. Accept the fact that they have had or will have sex and divorce her. It was painful to think about. I began to develop a plan. My mentoring week went well. My intern was a young man named Michael Rodriguez. Mike was hardworking and eager to learn. Every day I spent several hours studying my own trading. Markets have been calm and Dan's weather forecasts have been on target so far. I developed a trading plan for the next few weeks that was going to make me a lot of money. On Monday, I don't call Hillary, and she doesn't call me. I know she's working. On Tuesday morning, she calls around 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm at work, and we've only been talking for a few minutes. The excitement caused by our previous telephone conversation continues. The week flies by quickly, and it's already the end of the working day on Thursday. My plane leaves SeaTac tomorrow morning. I'm taking my intern, Michael Rodriguez, out for a beer to celebrate his internship. It's a pleasant evening, and we talk mostly about trading. On the flight home, I feel relatively calm about what I can learn about the situation with Hillary and Banks. If he and all his crap seduced her, it's over. What I will do next is still being formulated. If seduction doesn't happen, then my strategy will be to slowly and decisively cut Banks out of our lives. The flight arrives in Kona around 16:00. One of the little things I like about Thorses is a fancy airport. Everything is outside under awnings. There are few closed buildings. Hillary picks me up at the curb. Hillary is in a good mood. A little strange, but good. She talks a lot, laughs a lot, and smiles a lot. She asks me about the trip, and when I start telling her about the Baines, about my student, or about something else, she seems to become uninterested. She asks me another question before I even finish answering the previous one. Strange. It's Friday, and the pool is hosting a Pau Hana event. I'm tired, but I still ask her if she wants to go. She says she doesn't care. I don't mind if we don't go, she says. Well, that's weird too. Hillary loves any party, and for all the time that we have lived here, we have not missed a single such event. I'm wondering if there is some reason why she doesn't want to go. I think it would be fun, I say. I've been on the mainland too long, and I want a glass or two of Mai Tai. Hillary pauses for a moment. I wouldn't mind being alone with you, she says, and strokes my thigh. Okay, I say. We'll go away for an hour or so, and then we'll reconnect, I declare. Hillary doesn't say anything, but the issue is resolved. We arrived a little after 6 to the usual group. Everyone's here, but I don't see Banks yet. It's a very typical evening at Pau Hana. We see Clarence and Linplato and Nisimoru, a couple who moved here a few months ago. I know Corey is in Australia, but I see Kiki across the street and I get up to talk to her. I know I can't say anything about her relationship with Banks. I promised Corey I wouldn't. We start talking, and she's very nice. She tells me she's staying in their family apartment indefinitely while Corey is in Australia. She explains that sometimes it's better to be in the condo while Corey is away. There's a lot of space, but sometimes I start to feel like a foster mother to my little brother and all his dates, she says with a laugh. After a while, I glance across the path and Hillary is looking at me with a slight frown. Maybe it's her turn to be a little jealous. Kiki and I continue talking for another half hour or so. From time to time, I felt the sadness of her life seep out when we moved on to a topic. I tell her how nice it was to talk to her, but it's time for me to go home. As I leave, I receive a short but sweet hug from her. Returning to our table, I don't see Hillary. The ever-observant Clarence notices that I'm looking for her. I think Mrs. Fletch Rivers left 15 minutes ago, he tells me. Oh, she must have gone back to the condo, I say, heading toward the house. Brian, he says, I think she was heading towards Mr. Disby Redmond's apartment. And, dear boy, it's none of my business, but while you were on the mainland, they spent a lot of time together, Clarence tells me, with some concern in his eyes. Slowly nodding my head, absorbing this information, I turn to Clarence and give him a brief hug, thanking him. I think he was a little surprised by the hug. I head to our apartment No. 508. My next Mai Tai has more rum than juice, and subsequent ones are mostly rum. It's not even 9 o'clock in the evening, and I'm passing out from alcohol and jet lag. When I wake up, it's already 2:30 a.m., so it's 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, which is about the time I usually get up. I don't want to wake Hillary, so I go to the spare bedroom. I doze off a bit, but by 6 a.m. I'm up and going for a run along Alley Drive. I have a lot to think about. Hillary's behavior, Banks, the commodity market, Clarence's comments, and I'm also thinking about Kiki White. One thing is for sure, Hillary and I will have a very frank conversation about Banks and the future. At the condominium, Hillary drinks her morning coffee. She smiles and asks how my run was. I answer that everything was fine, and then I ask her about last night. What happened last night? I ask. I return to the table, and you were no longer there. Where did you go? I know for a fact that she went to Banks' apartment. I just wasn't in a good mood last night. I just needed a break, she tells me. Well, you weren't here, I say. Where did you go? I ask. You know how it happens sometimes. You just don't want to be at the party. You looked like you were having a good time. I didn't want to ruin your fun, she told me with a short smile. Hillary, for the third time, I say a little more decisively, but still calmly, where did you go? She pauses, looks at me, and then looks down. After about a minute, she says, I went to talk to Banks. I'm trying to stay calm, but I'm starting to get a little angry. I tell her, so your husband has been away for almost 2 weeks, and you end up spending time with Banks. When I returned home, you were out of the game, she tells me. Now I'm furious. She avoids my questions, and her relationship with Banks is too close. It destroyed our marriage. I need to find out the truth about what's going on. When I sharply ask her about her relationship with Banks, she finally says this. He advises me. He really understands me. He shows me how to experience more things and live a fuller life. When I'm with him, I'm calm. My stress evaporates and I can physically relax. What is this asshole feeding her? I lose my cool and start screaming and tell her I'm going to talk to him and settle this once and for all. We had a big fight and she left. I decided not to go to Banks' apartment right now. I practice calming exercises. Deep breath, deep breath. At this time, I can't afford to be charged with assault and battery. I'm hanging out at the condo and Hillary doesn't come back. I wouldn't be surprised if Banks has it. Early in the day, I text her saying we need to have a serious conversation. A few hours later, she replies that she will be home at 6 in the evening and is ready to talk. I spent the entire afternoon planning my strategy. It basically boils down to what I was thinking while on the mainland. If she had sex with him, then it's over. If not, we cross him out of our lives. I have another plan for Banks. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rings. Why is she ringing the doorbell? When I open it, I see Hillary, and next to her is Banks. He looks at me with a calm and smug expression on his face. My temper flares, and I quickly move on to calming exercises for several reasons, including to avoid hitting him. What is he doing here? I ask. Hillary looks at me with an expression of patience. Banks and I have a lot to tell you, and it will be better if we discuss everything together. Banks and I want to throw him out, but curiosity about what they are going to say gets the better of my initial impulse. I need to get to the bottom of this. I really need to know what's going on. Okay, I say, why don't you start telling me what's going on? We move into the living room. They are sitting on the sofa facing me. I'm sitting in the only chair. Brian, you know that I've had self-esteem problems all my life, she says. She looks at me, waiting for an answer. I just stare back at her blankly. So, she continues, I'm starting to understand the origins of some of these problems. Banks reveal this information to me. I feel so strong and happy. For the first time in my life, I feel truly happy. So you want to say that you are not happy in our marriage? I ask her. No, Brian, honey, I love you. You are wonderful. It's not about you, it's about me, understanding myself, pushing my boundaries, and ultimately becoming the best life partner for you. Banks teaches me a lot, she says. I'm already close, Brian. I'm almost at the point where I can live life to the fullest, she pleads. On the outside, I am calm, but on the inside, I am more than angry. Her stupidity and his bullshit really turned me on. Deep breath, to make a plan. I sit, calm down, and say nothing. They probably think I don't understand. Brian, Banks interjects with a professorial air. There is a little child inside each of us who seeks acceptance from our parents. Hillary has problems with abandonment related to the passing of the father. She used her looks and sexuality to try to gain this recognition. Are we in our first year of psychology? I wonder if this idiot believes the bullshit that comes out of his mouth. He goes on to talk about expanding your horizons, breaking down personal barriers, and learning about all aspects of life. I'm starting to get tired of it all and actually switching off, but I notice one thing. Hillary looks at him almost the same way I saw her look at Dr. Greg Mustard many months ago. All his chatter seemed to come to an end, and he told me something that shocked me. Hillary will stay with me for the next week so that we can overcome the last barriers and prepare her for a full life. What? I exclaimed. Are you moving? I asked. It's hard to stay calm in the face of news like this. Brian, honey. She's literally on her knees, hands clasped, as if in prayer. It's just for a week or so, she pleads. A reassuring smile appeared on her face, as if she wanted me to understand the importance of all this. Are you sleeping with this guy? I ask. At this point, I need to put all this crap aside and figure out what's really going on. Oh, Brian, sex is so unimportant in the scheme of life, she says. Banks nods sagely, as if his student has learned his lesson and the professor is confirming it. Brian, says Banks, the human species has many ways of communicating. Sight, sound, hearing, and of course, touch. Old morals can limit people in what they can experience to live their most fulfilling life. So, in a very vague way, he just told me that they were sleeping together. I remember that first time on the beach when he looked at her in a bikini. Hillary, I say, I'll give it one last try. Do not do that. You are my wife. We have some problems, but we will get through it. Do not leave me. Darling, she begs, it's only a week. One little week from our life. I will come back and be the best version of myself for you for the rest of our days. She says this, looking at me with the same blissful smile on her face. After these words, Banks stands up, and Hillary follows his example. As they walk out the door, she shouts to me, I love you. I hardly slept that night. I know my marriage is over, and I'm not as sad as I might think. Most of all, I'm angry. I'm mad at Banks in particular. I start to think about my plan. I did some research, and I think I've determined what type of predator Banks is. He considers himself an apex predator. He needs to have another man's woman and for him to accept it. This won't happen here. On Sunday morning, I go for a run along Aliyah Drive. There was a crowd on the street this morning. Along the way, I get lost in thought as I work on my acting skills. If my plan is going to work, I have to be believable. On the way back, I saw Kiki at the building. I wave at her and we chat. She said she was going for coffee. I ask if I can join her. Is Hillary going to join us too? She asks. I hesitate and then tell her that we are not together. She says she saw us together 2 nights ago at Pauhana. I tell her it's a long story if she's interested. I think with all the gossip at Kona Palms, she already has an idea. Of course, I'm interested. Let's have coffee, Kiki answers. We're going to Java on the rocks. It's outside, and I'm impeccably dressed in my running clothes. I tell Kiki a very short version of my situation with Hillary, and with Banks, she's quiet, just taking it all in, but I can tell it's very close to her heart. We both suffered because of Banks Redmond. While we are walking back, we talk about other topics, and we have a very good conversation. I'm starting to like Kiki. We get back, and I ask her if we could meet next weekend. She starts shaking her head in refusal, and I stop her. Kiki, I'm not Banks, I say. I like you as a friend. I am currently married, but I expect my marital status to change very quickly. You know why? Come on, 2 friends are still dating together. She smiles, and it's like sunshine. Okay, I think. I'd like to see you again. But for now, we are just friends. She gives me a brief hug and kisses my cheek. As she leaves, I notice that there is a spring in her step. It's Monday and the markets are quiet, but I have a feeling that change is coming quickly. I have studied Dan's models, and they match the information received at the agriculture conference. I'm making big moves in corn and coffee. I'm entering soybean futures. I take all these steps before the market has a chance to react. I have my own LLC, which is buried in several offshore corporations. It's legit. I just like to keep everything separate. It may eventually lead to me, but it will require a lot of resources. This is my secret account. Through the LLC, I enter into my own transactions. If I do everything right, I will have at least $500,000 in my secret account. In fact, it could go up to $1 million. I haven't seen Hillary or Banks at Kona Palms since Saturday night. That's great, but I need to contact Banks as part of my plan. I'm in the office early on Wednesday morning, and so far so good. I see a trend, and it seems others see it too. The big difference is that I got in while prices were low. Specifically, at 9:30 a.m., I am walking around the Palms grounds. On the lawn, I see Banks doing martial arts. I quickly transform into a beaten, insecure person. I stop him and apologize. I scared him, and I think at first he thought I was going to attack him. I thanked him for helping Hillary and asked if he and I could talk sometime. Nodding, he agreed that it would be a good idea. Suddenly, as if it had just occurred to me, I told him that I needed one more dive to become certified as a scuba diver. If we could go out, he would instruct me and help support Hillary. I asked him not to tell Hillary anything about us getting together. I don't want to distract her from the work you and she are doing together. I tell him this with a frank and serious expression on my face, frowning. We agreed to meet at the port on Thursday at 15:00. I even hug him when we leave. Thank God this guy has such a big ego. He wants to complete his dominance over me by having me agree for him to have my wife. Works exactly according to my plan. I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer this afternoon. I discussed the situation with my new lawyer, Gerald Chin. He asked me what level of aggression I wanted to approach this matter with. Humiliation with service at her job, restraining order, adultery citation, what would I like to do? I tell him I need to think about this. I ask him to start processing the paperwork. I get up early on Thursday morning. There's a lot to do. First up is a long bike ride north along Aliyah to the Queen K Highway. I return before 10 a.m. I look at the markets and everything seems to be going according to my predicted trend. I'm supposed to meet Banks at the port at 3:00 p.m. After a bit of running around, I found myself there shortly after 2:00 p.m. I carefully unload my gear onto his boat. I'm wearing a cheap Hawaiian shirt with flowers and a big plantation hat. I never wear clothes like this. He appears at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I act submissive and subservient towards him, trying to play on his ego. We chat casually for a minute as we get settled. "Brian," he begins, "I thought you had inner ear problems that prevented you from diving," he asks. I received another report, and they told me that, most likely, I was sinking too quickly into the depths. It would take me longer to get down to the level of the reef, but I was assured that if I went down slowly, I would be fine. It's complete nonsense, but he bought it. "So tell me," I ask, "how is Hillary doing?" I'm so glad his ego is so inflated. I don't feel any suspicion from him about my actions. He goes on to say that it is evolving. He enrolled her in a program that helps her find herself. She blossoms and her beauty blossoms too. It talks about her overcoming self-doubt and expanding her horizons in all aspects of her life. In fact, he says, once she returns to your bed, you will be very pleased with what she has learned. I am glad to be her instructor, and you will be the recipient of her acquired skills. Hillary is a very sensual woman. It took all my self-control not to hit him at that moment, but I maintain my calm, obsequious attitude. I nod my head, as if everything he said suddenly makes sense. "Thank you," I tell him with a look of awe on my face. He buys it. This inspires him when he talks about his sexual prowess. That sexual self-control is all mental. That if you practice tantric principles, you can become a much better lover. An ordinary man, and he nods in my direction, has no idea what to do with such a beautiful woman as Hillary. First, you have to understand them and peel back all the layers until you know what exactly they want. I have helped many women better understand their own sexuality. As I said before, this is my gift to those I counsel. If the ocean had been a little rougher, I might have chalked up my nausea to seasickness. But no, today the ocean is calm. In life, you will see that people are not much different from the animal world. He continues, there are predators in nature. The same is true with people. Brian, without any false modesty, I will tell you that I am at the top of the food chain. I see what I want and I take it. I am an apex predator. I do my best to act as if every word he says has divine meaning. This is truly disgusting. "Yeah," he proclaims, "we're here. I'm going to lower the anchor and turn off the engine. My scuba gear is in these bags. Get it out and we'll get started," he commands, heading downstairs. It couldn't be better. I grab his short wetsuit and prepare him for the dive. By the time he rises, everything is ready. I'm still tinkering with my gear next to my large travel bag. "Looks like you're packed for the week," he says. I'm just laughing. While putting on his shorty, he notices a specific smell. He sniffs the air and a puzzled expression appears on his face. I look a little to the side, but watch him carefully. He shakes his head as if this is just one of life's little mysteries and walks down the stainless steel stairs into the ocean. Before he goes underwater, I say to Banks, "It will take about 15 minutes before I go down to the reef." "I need to go down slowly," I explained. He waves his hand as if my situation doesn't matter to him. Like this. When Corey used the attractant, he only used half the bottle. I wonder what the reaction will be with a full bottle. The final touch was to raise the dive ladder onto the deck. There was now 3 feet of smooth fiberglass between the ocean and the deck railings. It will be difficult to climb it. I didn't see him again. I waited an hour to launch my little inflatable boat. Even seeing so many sharks made me nervous. Then he headed to the beach. Looking at the beautiful sunset, I dozed off for a minute. I shook myself and ordered myself to move on. The hardest part was done, but there is still a lot to do. So far, the plan has worked perfectly. Behind the breakers, I disconnected the small electric motor and threw it overboard. He sank like a stone. Then I put on my backpack, took out a knife, and cut the inflatable raft. With the ebb and flow of the tides, you never know where the pieces of this raft will wash up. I swam to the shore. The sky was turning dark blue. I came across a field or lava. I hid all my running equipment deep in the field, away from where they could be found. Beach is closed on Thursday, so I was doubly protected from potential thieves. I found my hiding place and changed into running clothes. Putting on my backpack, I carefully walked along the uneven surface towards the highway lights. It was an 11-mile run in the dark back to Kona Palms. For the first half of the journey, I was energized by the adrenaline of this day. The last half was difficult for me. It had been a long day, and I had run out of energy. By the time I got home, it was almost 9 o'clock. That evening, I just sat in the apartment and thought. Mentally, I reviewed the past day. I didn't think I was noticed as I walked toward Banks' boat. I was wearing a funny shirt and hat. I didn't lean out of the boat as we left the harbor. I wiped down all the things in the boat that I remembered touching. In the end, I decided that no one saw me run out onto the highway. It was dark. The events of the past day were replaying deep in my thoughts. Despite Banks' death, I didn't feel an ounce of remorse. I know that I will never be able to tell anyone about this day. Friday was a new day, and I was back at work at 5 in the morning. Another ordinary day. Markets behaved as more aggressive models predicted. I slowly sold my positions. I left the game. I calculated that my trading commissions alone brought me about $40,000. For my LLC, my gross income before taxes was over $700,000. By mid-afternoon, I was a little surprised that I hadn't heard from either Banks or Hillary. By evening news, there was a missing person and an abandoned boat anchored off the coast near the airport. On Friday evening, Hillary knocked on the condominium door. All day, I thought about how to play this out. I knew this moment would come. Hillary, I say in surprise, what do you need? My role is the abandoned husband. It's actually not that difficult to play. She hugs me with tears in her eyes. Brian, Banks is missing. They found his boat at sea, but he wasn't on board, she cries. I don't return hugs. My arms hung limply at my sides. I pull away from her and ask what happened. Brian, it's all over the news, she says. They found his boat, but there's no sign of Banks. Now she's crying. I look at her as if trying to comprehend the situation. I pause and then say, I'm sure he will be found. Most likely there's nothing to worry about. She looks at me with a glimmer of hope in her eyes, thinking that maybe I'm right. I walk up to her, and she seems to think I'm going to hug her, so I put my hand on her back and gently lead her to the door. I think you said you were moving for a week. You still have a few days, I say without any emotion. She looks at me with a blank look. Brian, you're kicking me out of my own apartment. I need you now more than ever, she stutters. You didn't seem to need me while you were cheating with Banks, I say. No more pretense now, I'm furious. Brian, sex isn't that important. Banks says it's just a different way of communicating. Our traditional morality prevents us from finding ourselves. Please don't let a little thing like sex get in the way of our growth together. Get out, I shout. If I hear that mumbo-jumbo about self-realization one more time, I'm going to puke. She sobs as she leaves. On Sunday morning, Kiki and I drank coffee again. I make sure that we only appear as friends. No hugging, no kissing, no holding hands, nothing. We get along great. We talk a little about Banks, but not too much. First of all, I don't want to seem too interested in him. This may seem suspicious. Secondly, I really don't care. Don't get me wrong, I would love to hug and kiss Kiki. I have a feeling she would like it too. I would love to just hold her hand. For a number of reasons, I have to take my time. Back at the apartment, I turn on the news. The first thing I hear is a gruesome discovery on a popular beach outside of Kona. A severed arm, possibly from a shark attack, washed ashore. Well, it has begun. On Monday, Hillary tries to call me, but I don't answer the phone. Then they call me again. It's the police. They say they are investigating the death of Banks Redmond. They come to my apartment, and we discuss the Thursday that Banks left the harbor. The detective implied that they thought I might have gone scuba diving with Banks. I deny everything. I tell them about my inner ear problems and give them the name of my doctor so they can check if they want. That was the last I heard from them. I changed the locks on the apartment, but Hillary continues to try to get back to me. I hear sobbing voicemails and knocking on the apartment door day and night. On Friday, I call Gerald Chin and tell him I want her served. I also want to get a restraining order citing that she left me and is committing adultery. He asks when, and I tell him Friday night at Kona Palms on Alii Drive at 7 p.m. Pauhana will be there that evening. It's a low-key event, coming on the heels of news of Banks' gruesome death. They didn't like him. I'm finding out, but in the Palms community, he was one of us. The investigation lasted several days, but due to the lack of any other information, it was declared that it was a shark attack. Both Kiki and Hillary are present at this event. I sit quietly at a small table with Platamy, Clarence, and Lynn. Several times Hillary approaches me, but my friends shut her out. Kiki and I smile and make eye contact a few times, but she knows to stay away for now. Among the flowery shirts, shorts, and a pair of bikinis, the collection includes a short, dapper Asian man in a suit and tie. The group falls silent for a moment and then resumes normal conversation. He walks up to Hillary and says her name. I see her nod, and he hands her a 9x11 envelope. You've been served. With a small, polite bow, he turns and leaves. There is silence at Pauhana, and then Hillary is shaken by sobs. Even I feel a little uneasy. I get up and go to the dark corners of the site before she notices me. In the distance, I hear her sobbing as she calls my name. I'm already thinking about getting a room at the Royal Kona for the night, just so I don't have to see her, when suddenly a small hand grabs my arm. This is Kiki. Hey, she says, do you want some company? I tell her yes, but I'm really not in the mood to talk. We went to her house. We talked for a while, and I asked if I could stay to avoid confrontation tonight. She agreed. Just don't take this the wrong way, she said. I understood. I successfully avoided Hillary all weekend and returned to the 508 on Saturday night. On Sunday, Kiki and I had coffee and had a long, frank, and wonderful conversation. We still didn't talk about the future, but I think we both knew we would have a future together. Finally, I spoke to Hillary. She begged and cried. I told her it was over. When she finally realized this, she became furious. She found herself a lawyer, and the battle began. Chin had a staff of investigators and interviewed many people who witnessed Hillary Banks being seduced. One of the residents saw them naked together on Banks' terrace. Clarence visited me on Friday morning. He told me that Chloe, Banks' widow, would arrive on Saturday from the mainland, apparently to get some of Banks' affairs in order. I thought about this news and said, but Hillary is there. Yes, dear boy, I know that. She doesn't know about Miss Davenport's arrival. I thought you should know so you can prepare accordingly. All week I received calls from Hillary, which alternated with anger over the divorce and pleas to leave everything as it was and stay together. My love for her disappeared. I just wanted to leave. I met with Kiki on Saturday morning to help me develop a plan to end the relationship. At first, she didn't want to agree because of a couple of details, but then she agreed. I wasn't there when Chloe arrived at her and Banks' apartment, which was now occupied by my soon-to-be ex-wife Hillary, but according to several accounts, this is what happened. Chloe arrives at the apartment and quickly realizes that someone is there. Obviously not Banks. At this moment, Hillary was just taking a bubble bath. Chloe demands to know what the hell Hillary is doing in her apartment. She didn't know or care about Banks, his last girlfriends, or who he slept with. Why are you here? Chloe shouted at Hillary. Hillary stood up and covered herself with a towel, soap suds running down her body. Oh, Chloe, Hillary exclaims, isn't that terrible about Banks? She asked with sadness and pleading in her eyes. No, says Chloe, it's not terrible at all. In fact, this whole shark business is saving me millions. I was just about to divorce this asshole. Hillary looks at Chloe with a blank look. How could she say such a thing about her brilliant mentor? Now get out of my house before I call the police and arrest you for trespassing, Chloe tells her. Chloe stops her as she heads to the bedroom to get dressed, dejected. Get out, she shouts. But my clothes, Hillary laments. Out, she orders, and give me my towel. Hillary ends up naked on the street. Kind-hearted Lynn and Clarence rescue her and give her clothes before she embarrasses herself further. Probably one of the residents spied on it. An hour later, she shows up at my door. Brian, she says, I know the lawyers are fighting, but you are my husband. Can't we at least talk? She asks. I let her into the house, she sits on the sofa, and I sit on the only chair. I miss you, and I still don't understand why you're so angry with me, she says. Hillary, you slept with Banks. The worst thing is, you acted like it was no big deal, I told her. Brian, why are you so focused on the sexual part of my healing and self-realization? I did it for us, she tells me. Are you saying that sleeping with Banks was supposed to be good for our relationship? Brian, forget about sex with Banks. You and I are destined to be together. I'm devoted to you. Banks helped me realize that you are truly my life partner. From now on, my task is to make you happy every minute of every day. What more could you want? She says this with sincere conviction, looking me straight in the eyes. Just then, Kiki comes out of the bedroom, her hair and makeup disheveled, as if she had just rolled out in bed. Hillary looks at her with a shocked expression. Oops, Kiki says, making no move to cover herself. A small smile plays on her face. You, Hillary shouts. What are you doing here? And what are you doing naked with my husband? Well, you know how outdated morals can limit people, Kiki says with a straight face. Anyway, sorry for interrupting, she says, heading back to the bedroom. Brian, as soon as she leaves, could you come back and expand my horizons again? She stares at Hillary, eyebrows arched. Sorry, Hillary, I say. I need to go back and work on becoming a better version of myself. Hillary runs out of the apartment, sobbing. Everyone must understand one thing. At this point, the closest thing I had to Kiki was a couple of light kisses. She reluctantly agreed to help. She had to leave the bedroom only in her robe. She improvised the rest. I'm not complaining. When I enter the bedroom, she is already dressed. She sees the disappointment on my face and laughs. You look like someone just took your favorite toys away from you, she says with a beautiful smile. Once your divorce is final, this entire chest of toys, no pun intended, will be yours to play with as much as you want. Kiki hugs me, kisses me, and smiles widely. A few months later, we're Hillary legally divorced. She moved to the mainland a long time ago. In the divorce agreement, we divided the bank accounts. I didn't disclose anything about my secret account. I bought her share in the apartment from her. I'm not leaving. Kiki practically lives with me. I never said anything about banks, shark bait, or even scuba diving for that matter. Even with Corey, he and I became good friends. From time to time, I catch his gaze on me. I have a feeling that he has an idea of what happened. Life in paradise is wonderful. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.